Hello, everyone. Welcome again to the BATTASS Podcast, the Batman the Animated Series show podcast, where we talk about Batman the Animated Series. My name is Clay McCormick, and with me, as always, is Sean Murphy. How you doing, Sean?
Man, I got into a literal fist fight with my sister over this episode of Batman Over the Edge.
Really?
Yeah, literal. I know millennials use literally in a not literal way, but I'm literally a fist fight. We didn't get along as kids. We had to take turns with the TV because, you know, our parents were awesome and only had one. And it was her turn to watch it. Or I think it was my turn. And
I'm sure they didn't do anything else for you, but the fact that they had one TV really pissed you off.
So this episode, I'm like, I want to watch Batman the Animated Series, and this comes on, and I'm like, what is going on? Everyone knows who Batman is. Like my world is falling apart. Like this, such an explosive episode, such an amazing beginning too. My sister comes in and switches the channel, and I was like, it's not your turn. And I don't remember who was right or wrong, but we ended up fighting over the TV. And like, I'm literally pinning her down on the floor as she's trying to bite my hand and trying to get to the TV to turn it off. And, you know, this is before, you know, I wasn't recording it. You know, we didn't have, you know, it's not like TVR or whatever like that. You know, there's no internet at the time. You know, so if I don't watch this now, I might never, ever see it again, period.
Right.
You know, it's like 1990, whatever it was. So she's like, kept struggling to get out of my lock. I was trying to hold her down so I wouldn't hurt her, and she kept like spitting on me and biting my hand and punching me and kicking me. And I finally like lost my shit, and I literally dragged her out of the house and locked her out of the house so I could watch the rest of the episode.
Wow.
Somehow she managed to weasel back in through the garage, came up again, and once again we were in a literal fight over this. And I remember, I mean, at this point the episode's over, and I've missed it, and I have her like pinned on the stairs, and she's like screaming, and I don't know, my parents weren't home obviously, and she hit me once really good in the chest, and I punched her back, which you shouldn't punch girls or her sister, and you know, it was a bad move. Like I regretted it immediately. So she picks up the phone to call the cops.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so I grab the phone and I slam it down. I'm like, I'm fine. I'm sorry. You hit me a whole bunch of times. I hit you back. You know, fair is fair, whatever. Like, you're not in any more danger. Let's just, you know, if the cops show up, our parents are never going to allow us to stay home alone without supervision ever again. You know?
Correct.
So, and years later, so we kept that secret. Years later, this fight hits the fan again, and our parents found out about it somehow. And I immediately admit guilt, like, it was my fault. She tried to change the channel. This Batman episode, it was amazing. Batman was like this and that. And they're like, don't tell us about the episode. Tell us about
listen, if I explain what happened, you'll understand. You'll understand why I did what I did. If you just hear what this episode was about, it was unbelievable.
So I assumed they would be pissed at me because I'm the older one. I weigh 50 pounds more than her. And they instead got mad at her. They're like, Becky, you know how you set your brother off? You're always in his face. Like, why can't you leave him alone? And so I started getting mad, defending her. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. Like, there's no way I should have hit her back. Like, you know, it was a disaster. And it is what it is. So anyway, yeah, amazing episode.
Moral of the story is, if you're a parent, buy that second TV if you're thinking about it, because it might save your relationship with your kids. Anyway, yeah, we're talking about 2 episodes now, although we might get an hour just talking about unpacking everything that you just said. But we're doing 2 episodes. We are actually halfway through the season. I actually can't believe that because I feel like it's only a 24 episode season. This is, I think, our 6th episode, so we're halfway through.
Wow.
And we're doing The Ultimate Thrill and Over the Edge. So we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to talk about Ultimate Thrill. And I don't know if you how many deep-seated emotional trauma you have linked to that episode, but we can get into that first, I think.
And Becky, if you're listening, I'm sorry once again. I didn't mean to hit you. I was just really, really mad.
All right, we'll take a quick break. We'll be right back with Ultimate Thrill.
There's nowhere to go.
There's always down.
But we're 3,000 feet up.
Isn't it cool? Bye.
All right, The Ultimate Thrill, written by Hilary J. Bader, directed by Dan Reba, and in this one, former stuntwoman and adrenaline junkie Roxanne Sutton becomes the rocket-riding thief Roxy Rocket to chase danger and excitement. I looked up the trivia on this afterwards, and one thing popped out because it was a statement from Paul Dini and Bruce Timm that echoed something I thought while I was watching it. They didn't say it exactly like this, but this is the horniest episode of Batman the Animated Series I think I've ever seen.
Yeah. At the end, when they're racing towards a cliff, she's playing a game of chicken. They're both on the rocket. She's hoping Batman's going to blink first and jump off, and he doesn't. And she blinks first. She turns around to try to shut off the rocket or whatever, and he takes her hand, and he's like, "What's the matter? I thought you liked excitement or whatever," proving that he's more badass than she ever will be. And she has an orgasm as she assumes they're plunging to their death, their literal death. She gets off.
Yep. Yeah. That is the pun intended climax of an episode's worth of horniness from a bunch of different characters. There's a little bit of horniness from Batgirl in this. There's a whole bunch from Roxy. It is a very subtext laden episode.
Yeah.
That being said, I think it's a pretty good one. I think Roxy Rocket is a really fun character. She's got something about her. I don't know what it is, but there's something about her that is different and kind of fresh.
Yeah.
While also being a really kind of classic, almost like Fleischer era design to her.
100%. Yeah. Well said.
She's got the Rocketeer kind of look, and she's riding this ridiculous, oversized metaphor. But it feels like something you'd see out of the Fleischer cartoons in the 30s or 40s or whatever.
Yeah, I loved her from the minute I saw her. The design, the goggles, the rocket, the leather jacket, the hero scarf, the hair. I had a crush on. I was definitely had a crush on her when I first saw her, and this is exactly the type of woman that I would date for a while and would get me into a lot of trouble because they're crazy,
Yeah. She's got an attitude. They somehow managed to, thankfully, made her have an attitude that's different than the other female characters on the show that have that sort of like I don't know what the word is, but aggressive isn't the right word. But right. she's very different from Catwoman. She's very different from Harley. Yeah. But they all kind of are playing in a little bit of the same pool there.
Yeah.
And it's just a really she's just a lot of fun. She's a really fun character.
Yeah. Yeah, she's hot in a way that like punk rock chicks can be hot, or roller derby girls are hot. They're aggressive and powerful, and they own their bodies. They're not afraid of their bodies, and it's just a different type of sexuality than what Catwoman has. It's not sensual.
Right,
it's like
right.
rugged, but it's like, God damn, you are hot. And
right,
know
and
it.
they do it without like leaning on that sort of like visual cue. It's not like, oh, she's got a half her hair cut off and it's kind of the tips are dyed pink, so you know that she's a badass. Right. Like it's very much from the performance of the actress.
Yeah,
which is, I think it's great. I looked her up. I didn't recognize her name from anything really. I'm surprised. She's good.
Or her face. Yeah, she hasn't done very much, this actress.
Yeah, but she's great in this.
Yeah, like that raspy voice. She sounds like a smoker. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's got like just enough rasps to it. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's yeah. I mean, you might to skip to the end. One thing I would want to draw in this is obviously Roxy, because I think she's just amazing. I got to draw her in White Knight. I had her as one of the villains who got brainwashed, and there wasn't a whole lot of time to really do like a splash with her, really do what I would have liked to have done. And mostly, I found the Rocket.
Whoa, calm down, Sean. Jesus Christ. Talking about doing what you'd like to have done.
God, I didn't even think of it that way. But ironically, I hated drawing that fucking rocket.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's my design problem with it is a whole lot of nothing going on. Just like when you draw the TAS Batmobile, it can be tricky because you have like 3 lines. And if you don't get them all right, then it's going to look wrong. It's not like there's a lot of detail that you can scribble in to cover up anything, And for her rocket, I had a hard time figuring out how the handlebars would attach. Because I don't like how they're swept back in this episode. I sort of like a different design sense, but I never really took a hard stab at it. I sort of half drew the rocket in the first panel from far away, and then I got to draw it closer, and I sort of figured some stuff out, but I never actually took the time on the side to do like a design of like what I'd want to see. You know what I mean? So whenever I look back at those little pages, I'm just like, ugh, fucking rocket.
You know what I discovered while I was doing Bloody Hell that I have a really hard time drawing is
period.
Like
okay,
yeah.
You took a break. Yes. I thought that was the end of it.
Yeah, I have a really hard time drawing. No, I have a hard time drawing those. Like basically, I learned it because I was drawing all these swords.
Yeah,
and I was like, man, I just haven't really figured out how to reconcile two straight lines that then turn into like a arch that comes to a point.
Yeah.
And I don't know why. It's just something like every time I do it, it's like I start I stop the straight lines at the wrong point, so it's like not even or something, or the point is like slightly off center.
Yeah.
I can see drawing that rocket. If you don't kind of like nail it, I can see it being very difficult.
Yeah, it's sort of like drawing a sword. You got this curve and it comes to like a point and there's like a little antenna dot on the nose or whatever. If you have the wrong angle on your French curve or whatever you're using, it can look droopy. It has to be, again, I don't mean to get into all these penis jokes, but
this whole episode is apparently just going to be a giant therapy session. So we may as well get into the psychosexual aspect of it now.
I wonder if you slowed down any of the explosions, if you would see like a cloud shaped like a dick or something.
Oh, jeez.
Because that's what I would have done.
Yeah, we know. But they also throw in the penguin here to give a little bit of extra stuff for her to do. I like. How did you feel about the animation in this episode? Because the first chase sequence. Mm-hmm. I didn't think looked great. The one where it was he was chasing her in the Batwing, mm-hmm. But the second one when he's chasing her in that toy advertisement he's wearing, through like the tunnel and everything, that looked fantastic. I thought the animation, like from that point on, I thought was really, really good.
Yeah, I think sometimes this design of this season is a little bit papery. It's very flimsy. It looks like Batman's cut out of a piece of cardboard. And you can just sort of knock him. He doesn't feel very rounded. He doesn't feel three-dimensional at all, even though obviously he's not 3D. But you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I feel like some of the angles they pick on him, he looks like a sticker that's moving. He doesn't look like a round object at all. But I think that you're right. They did manage to fix it. So at the very end, when she takes off her jacket, and you can see her like bruised Tim arms, just sort of her hyper-extended elbows slightly. She's like this like pin-up girl, like Betty Page on top of this rocket. I thought she looked so good. She looked very rounded. But Batman with the angles, I think it just made him more look like a piece of paper sometimes.
Yeah, there's one shot, I can't remember if it must be this episode, where it's like I think it's in the Batcave. Uh-huh. And Batman's sitting at the computer, and it's like a close-up on him with, I think, Alfred and Batgirl in the background.
I know the shot,
and Batman's face looks like it was just drawn in like jagged lines.
Yeah.
It feels very flat. You're right. It feels like somebody cut him out of paper or something, as opposed to like a fully formed figure. Yeah,
for sure. It's funny because you can tell a different studio did this than some of the other stuff that like I think the next episode was done by the Best Studio, and it's in Japan, and they always draw Batman with the biggest fucking chin. But they make it work. Like there's something about it. Like his eyes are, 2 inches apart. His nose is right there, and then there's his mouth, and then there's a giant ass chin underneath that. But it kind of works. And this studio moves the mouth to a more anatomically correct position, but it uses these like concave lines to outline his face. So instead of like roundness coming out of your ears, it dips in around the cheekbones. It's like the style choice that they make. And it stands out to me because the other studio who animates this season doesn't do that, but they do the big thing.
It is interesting. I always find it interesting in the show when you can see the disparity between animation houses or what, because there are some that look like they are movie level, big screen ready animated feature quality, and then there are some where it's like we needed to get this done because the episode was late, and so we cut a couple frames out of this punch that Robin's throwing in this one.
Yeah.
Roxy.
Sorry, go ahead. I was going to say this is the first time we can see that the Penguin is going legit. Like he sort of describes, like, I can't get caught. If you're coming here, Batman's going to follow you. When Batman shows up, he's like, where's your warrant? Like, he's going to be a legit straight businessman. And I don't think that that's been described up to this point.
Yeah, we've seen the Iceberg Lounge, but I don't think that he's ever voiced that he's trying to be a legit businessman.
Yeah.
He's horny too. We get about as close as we can get to him doing the line from Batman Returns where the Penguin's like, I want to teach her my French flipper trick. It's actually very similar kind of interaction with him and Roxy as with him and Catwoman in Batman Returns.
Yeah,
not quite as creepy. Yeah, not quite as creepy as Batman Returns, but
when you're leaking ink and juice out of your face while you're talking, it kind of turns it all up to 11.
Yes, yeah. Roxy's an interesting character because she actually originated, I don't know if anybody else really did this, she originated in the Batman Adventures Annual #1. So she was a comic book character first, but she was a comic book, the comic book she appeared in was the animated series comic. So Paul Dini created her for the animated series comic, Batman Adventures Annual. And then which was in 1994, so she had been around for 4 years before this episode came out.
Wow, I did not know that. That's cool.
Yeah, and so when they re-upped the series for the new Batman Adventures, they grabbed her and they thought she would be a good villain to use.
Yeah,
and I think I agree. I think it's a good choice. I think she's really iconic, but incredibly simple. Like there's no real weird gimmicks. She's just like a former stunt person who's a thrill seeker and turned to crime. That's it. She's got the big rocket, and that's like her whole gimmick, and it works really well. I think she's a good character.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm surprised people haven't done more with her.
Me too.
Because even in the comics, she doesn't really show up in the comics that much. She's only got she has a cameo in Detective Comics 822, which was written by Paul Dini. She was in Batgirl. She was in a couple issues of Batgirl.
Yeah.
And she was in Batman Black and White Volume 1. And one appearance. Oh, she was in 4 issues of Batman Lil Gotham.
Oh, that's Dustin. So Dustin Nguyen is
book,
a really close friend, and he and I bonded over this cartoon and Roxy, so I'm sure he threw that at the writer. Or Derek Friedolfs, I think, wrote that stuff. And
cool.
I know that's probably Dustin telling him, I want to draw Roxy Rocket.
Yeah, and after that, the only other appearance is in White Knight.
Where and I think I killed her.
Yeah, I think you killed everybody. Actually, it doesn't. I don't know, because it only mentions she appears in White Knight number 3 and 4. It doesn't mention that she shows up in Curse of the White Knight, so maybe she's still out there somewhere.
Or somebody hasn't updated the Wikipedia page for Curse. I'm not writing those. I don't know who's doing that, but usually they do a very good job. Although for a while I was an animator and I didn't correct it, and years went by, and finally somebody took out the animation part and just said I was a comic book artist, which is
really? Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm surprised she hasn't really had like a main title or anything kind of like run. Because all of these credits make it sound like she was just kind of a background character, or maybe like.
Yeah,
usually if they have a story, they will write out the story in the Wikipedia, and that's not the case.
I mean, it's begging for a Roxy Rocket year 1. I mean, you and I could easily come up with a pitch. It's like, oh yeah, so she was a stunt double and she had this thing and she liked to make things more difficult, and here's why, and here's how she got fired. Like, I love how they said she can't get insurance anymore because she's too much of a risk taker. Right. This is a kid show, so you don't want to go into insurance too much. But they do sort of quickly describe it, and it makes sense. Like, if I was an insurance guy...
we would write 4 issues of red tape that you would not believe. It would be the most exciting. Actually, no. If we what would be great is Red Hood Volume 2 should be the year Jason spent as a stunt person, where he ends up meeting Roxy Rocket.
That's true, man. He could be a little bit like Brad Pitt in Once Upon a Time from in Hollywood.
There's I think there's a whole series you could get out of him just using the the Incredible Hulk TV show framing, where it's like he's just constantly on the move, moving from town to town, job to job kind of thing. But he's also
a little bit of kung fu.
Exactly, kung fu. Yeah, I think that would be cool.
Yeah, that's funny. Did we say on this podcast about Jason Todd and how we're sort of basing him off of Johnny Lawrence from Cobra Kai?
I think we did. Yeah, I think we did mention that a couple episodes ago. Okay. But yes, that is the plan, is to at least a little bit base Jason Todd in our White Knight spinoff on Johnny Lawrence.
It's funny because you asked me, can I tweet something about this, and I said absolutely not. Do not write this down. If they can Google search it and they see that you've jumped the gun on marketing,
right.
But if you say it in a podcast, nobody seems to care. So, because no one's going to listen to you and I talking about mullets for 2 hours just on the chance that we're going to spoil a Jason Todd book that hasn't been announced.
That's true.
That's true. But anybody listening, do not write this down on Twitter. Thank you for not writing anything down. Like, I feel like there's a lot of secrets are kept here. This podcast. Like, I've met a lot of listeners, and none of them has spoiled said any of the dumb shit that I've said that could have gotten me canceled like 100 times over.
I was gonna say what you just did though is you asked everybody not to press the giant red button, and so now everyone's just gonna want to press the giant red button. But we'd appreciate it if you didn't, I guess.
Yeah, don't talk about it too much if you can help it. Yeah. Otherwise, I won't be able to be as honest on these podcasts anymore.
That's true. The only other thing that stood out to me in this episode that I thought was really funny was the last sequence when they're flying. They're doing the rocket chase there.
Yeah.
They go through an area of Gotham that is apparently a desert with canyons, a forest, and then also touches the ocean.
It's Springfield.
Yeah, it's very much Springfield from The Simpsons, where it's whatever land you need it to be. It's within driving distance.
I would have thrown in a cameo of that. There was an episode where Bruce forgot who he was, and he was in a prison gang in the desert.
Oh, yes.
I would have found a way to draw that in the background, or that fat guy somewhere in the background, because it looks like the same desert.
It does. It probably was. I can't imagine there's too much desert outside of the city limits of Gotham.
Yeah.
It very much kind of felt like a Wile E. Coyote cartoon to a certain extent, with
100%.
Him riding the giant Acme rocket through the canyons and stuff. I wonder. It wouldn't surprise me if that was somewhat intentional to make that sort of obscure reference.
It would be cool if you were drawing this comic to have a fold-out comic, so you open the page and it unfolds and unfolds. I forget what you call that. So you have like a massive, it's like a 4-page spread. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And you flip it over and it's another spread. Like, I remember there was an issue of Wildcats that Jim Lee did, and half of the issue was these massive fold-out pages, which are fucking awesome. It was just a giant splash of like Grifter and Zealot jumping through a window or something like that. I would be tempted to do that with this, but have the whole all 4 pages just be them sitting on this giant long rocket.
Yeah, that would. How difficult do you think is that to get approved? Like in the 90s, it was basically like, let's throw money at it. People will buy it. Who cares?
Yeah.
Like I've said before, you can tell how big of an industry the comics industry was in the 90s, in the late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah.
Because they put out a multi-issue series called Punisher Armory that was just technical drawings of his guns, and it probably sold 100,000 copies. Otherwise, it wouldn't have made 12 issues or whatever.
I think I even bought. They did that a lot with like issue 0, or Rob Liefeld swiped that. I'm sure he did one with like Youngblood or something like that. I'm sure I bought it.
but like now, do you think you would get like a hard no if you just suggested that and been like, I want to do a 5-page fold out in the middle of this issue? If
I pushed, the thing is you have to charge more for that book.
Right.
And their books are so expensive now anyway. They're like $5 a book at least. It's not even, it's disproportionate to the prices even in the 90s. Like even adjusted for inflation, it is way too expensive. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's funny because saying that has become like a culture war thing on Twitter, which is stupid. But yeah, $5.99 for a book is already asking a lot. And if you're going to ask now $7 for a book that's just glorified splash page, it's like, I would try it. You know, and I'm sure if DC is going to say yes to anyone who can move those numbers, it might be someone like me, but I don't know.
Yeah. You know what would be kind of cool? If you did that like in a Flash comic, right? And you have this big sequence where he runs backwards through time. So every fold out is a different time period.
Yeah.
To make it look like that would be kind of cool. But yeah. It would probably be like an $8 comic. That unless that comic is like 60 pages, I don't think that's going to fly.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know, man. There is one thing that really bothers me about this episode. It's so when Batman's in the bat plane and he's in trouble and he lands in the Batcave. First of all, you're trailing a bunch of smoke and fuel and fire. Like you just drew a straight line to where the cave is, basically. But whatever, it's a cartoon. So when he lands, the front wheel of the fucking jet comes down, and it looks like a wagon wheel. It is the jankiest,
I didn't even notice it.
Low-tech bullshit. Like, it bugged me when I was a kid, and it bugs me now. Like, it looks like a fucking wagon wheel. It's got spokes on it, and it's just, yeah. There's no way that flimsy piece of shit would hold up, take the impact of a plane landing on it.
You know, the other thing I noticed in that sequence actually was when he comes down, he has those like bungee cords or whatever that are stopping him.
Yeah.
That animation looked exactly like, remember in Batman '89 when he flies and he catches all the balloons in the ears?
Yeah.
It looked exactly the same. I wonder
You're
if
right.
they just referenced that to get that the way the wires hang over the side as it's going through. I hope they did. I would bet $1,000 that they did.
That's such a cool, because you have like, how is this thing going to slow down? We could do like a parachute out the back, but that's boring.
Yeah. Just hit a bunch of elastics. This whole episode has a little Wile E. Coyote built into it. We'll stop him with a giant elastic band.
Did you say that it was Paul Dini who wrote it? I can't remember.
Paul Dini created the character, but the episode itself was written by Hilary J. Bader.
Okay, yeah. Because I think all of these writers are Acme, Roadrunner cartoon fans.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. The only other thing I wanted to mention about this was it's another episode that has a really abrupt ending to it. But I feel like in this case it kind of works because I don't really know what else you do after he catches her, except, I mean, if they cut back to Wayne Manor and he's just taking a really cold shower, that might be a way to end it. But aside from that, I think the abrupt ending kind of works in this one.
If you could do this episode without any dialogue, you could have made this like, if this was a comic issue, you could do it with no balloons and just do it through silent storytelling, and it would be exactly the same. Yeah,
pretty much. Yeah.
That's why I think the ending works, because it's just like the whole episode is like beat for beat for beat for beat for beat, and then you get to the end and one more beat and we're done. Like that's kind of the gimmick they're going for.
And the episode itself is kind of a giant chase sequence, right? And the chase sequence ends when you catch the person you're chasing.
You're right that I hated his fucking rocket pack. It looks dumb. It's like, all right, so you have that. Well, why would you walk anywhere anymore ever again, Batman? Why not just wear that all the time? Why have a grappling hook? Like it just you jumped over this logic ravine. You can't get back now.
Well, he's trying some new stuff out. He's got the jetpack. He's got the fire suit. Maybe he's not going to hang on to everything.
Yeah.
In this one, when he takes the jetpack off, he throws it down very violently as though he thinks it sucks. I noticed when he takes it off, it's like cluck clank, cluck clank, cluck clank. Like he's just upset with it.
Yeah. And he can float. He can sort of propel himself in space and sort of just hover there too. And I don't know. I'm doing Beyond now, and Terry can fly in the suit, and I'm trying to figure out those fucking wings, and they're awful to draw. Like there's artists who make it look really good. Like I think Dan Mora did some in a comic, and he found a way to do it.
He's amazing.
Yeah, but you have to like consider the wings as a separate design element, and it's different no matter if he's walking, if he's punching, if he's flying. You really have to think it through. And you can tell a lot of artists who've drawn Beyond's wings didn't know what to do with it. They're kind of just flapping around. Like there's these two, like they look like wings of a fly, if you're not careful. There's these two
sure.
flappy things that shoot out of his back, and it's not clear. Are they coming out of his back? Are they coming out from like underneath his armpits?
Yeah, I always thought it was kind of like a glider situation, like one of those squirrel suit things, kind of like what Nightwing has.
Sometimes
in the show. Yeah.
But then he can grab somebody and pull them off a bridge with the wings still extended, which means they're not attached to his arms sometimes.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So what I did for my design was, those spikes the Batman always has on his forearms?
Yes.
I drew it so those things extend, and they are part of the kite, if you will. So it goes from...
Oh, sure. Okay.
So, and there's another part under his wrist that shoots out like 2 feet. So it's like he's holding a giant ruler in 2 hands, and it's like this red tarp that goes from his hip up through his armpits. So it's definitely like a squirrel type thing.
I see. Okay.
He can't lower his arms and not expect to plummet is the idea,
Okay, so Batman Beyond in your book is attached to a giant kite. Got it.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Yeah. Bold design choice.
Yeah, no, I know it sounds weird, but if I show you the concept art, like it does, I'll make it work. Don't worry. I haven't come this far. I mean, I got through Batman's prostitute high-rise boots for 2 volumes. I think I can make a kite work.
Hey, you throw a leg pouch on him and it'll work perfectly fine.
You're never gonna let me live that down. I did not want to draw Azrael's fucking pouch. You went hard to bat for that pouch, and in hindsight, it was totally the thing to do.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, you said you would draw Roxy in this one.
Yep. How about you?
I feel like the same. It's tough because there's only like a few things in this episode, really. Mm-hmm. When you really look at it.
Yeah.
I might take a swing at redesigning Batman's rocket suit.
Good one.
If he needs to have one, maybe do something a little bit different there. I'm not really sure what exactly it would be.
Yeah.
Maybe some sort of like large kite type situation. But yeah, I'm gonna go with that for now. What would you rate this one?
I'm gonna go a high 4.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is a 4. I think when it started off, I honestly was not sure about it because I thought, based on how this season has been going, I thought it was going to be kind of a throwaway with just a new character that they kind of burned through. But yeah, pleasantly surprised. I thought she was great. It's a bummer she doesn't really show up in anything after that. But yeah, I would give it a 4. This is definitely, especially from this season, this is definitely one you should watch.
Yeah, for sure.
That's going to do it for Ultimate Thrill. We'll take a quick break. We'll talk about Sean's going to lay down on the couch, and we are going to talk about Over the Edge.
No sign of him yet, Commissioner. Keep your eyes open. I know he's here. Barbara.
Got him.
Do it.
Over the Edge, written by Paul Dini, directed by Yuichiro Yano, and in this one, during a fight with the Scarecrow, Batgirl is ambushed on a rooftop and falls to her death. Having watched his daughter's demise, Jim Gordon blames Batman for her fate and vows revenge, recruiting Bane in the process. I do not remember this episode. I did not remember this episode from when it was on, and I don't think I've watched it since it was on.
Yeah.
Really good. The thing that stood out to me more than anything, and I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on here, obviously, because you've got this great hook they start with, and they jump backwards, and it turns out to be all in Scarecrow toxin and whatever.
Yeah.
This is a really serious episode.
Yeah.
It like they kind of I feel like this has White Knight written all over it.
100%. Yeah.
Because it kind of has that feeling where it's like, okay, well, what really kind of would happen if we kind of put the toys away for a second and someone actually got killed,
Yeah.
And I wasn't expecting them to take it that seriously and for things to get that dark.
Right. It's funny because Gordon, he figured out who Batman is, and he says, all I had to do was look in my daughter's diary or something like that. Mm-hmm. He figured it out, which to me, does that mean he knows that she's Batgirl? And for that matter, the ending, there's 2 ways to interpret it, whether or not Gordon actually knows that she's Batgirl.
Right. Yeah. The ending is interesting. Do you want to talk about that now, or do you want to wait until we get through?
Yeah,
the rest
we'll wait
of it?
for that, because
Sure,
that is
sure.
like the one, because it is such a fast-paced beat for beat for beat, but the ending does add the human element to this whole thing, which I think is why. Because you have a whole like, oh, it was just a dream thing, which really annoys people. However, they did manage to pull it off in this situation, you know?
Right. Yeah.
Because
And
having dreams and fears is sort of what Scarecrow's about, so that makes sense. If you're gonna do the whole it's a dream thing, you better make that fucking dream good. And
Right.
they did make it good, and then they used it to bolster or comment on her relationship with her father, which I thought was really nice.
Yeah, they also managed to keep it. I mean, you have to assume you're watching this that there's some sort of twist coming, but
It's too good not to.
Right, but they managed to keep it under wraps, or like keep your eye off the ball from the Scarecrow toxin, because
Yeah.
it's not like the usual Scarecrow
Yeah.
fear dream that involves,
Yeah.
Barbara falling out the nose of her father as he
Yeah.
face turns into a giant demon or something.
Yeah. Like, you're watching this the first time, it's never going to be the same again.
Right,
it's
right.
still a great episode, but I am jealous of people who have never seen this one, because I almost want to watch them watch it, because it's like stuff you can't come back from. Gotham, everyone knows that he's Bruce Wayne's Batman. You can't undo that. Gordon's going after him. Can't undo that. Gordon's breaking the law to kill him. Like cops are literally shooting at him. Alfred sacrifices himself so Bruce can escape.
Right,
and
right,
it's
right.
just like, oh shit, they are slaying all the sacred cows here. How the hell is Gotham ever going to be the same again?
Yeah. It's funny though. I do think they're playing a little bit of dirty pool as far as writing this goes, because sure, it's Scarecrow toxin, whatever.
Yeah.
But like the way that they present the episode, it has like a flashback built into it. Like what I'm saying is, her dream is very writerly structured. Let's put it that way. You know what I mean? They're using some tricks of manipulation that writers have, but that aren't necessarily present, you would think, in a person's. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe people have dreams that have flashbacks built into them. I don't know. But but like it's played so straight, and they do that thing where they start with the beginning, and then they get to Nightwing saves them. Oh, by the way, one of the big thing this episode does, I think it confirms Nightwing's got a mullet, because the back of his hair is so long when he's on that jet ski, and it's all flapping in the wind, and the top is just so tight and not moving. I have to imagine it's shorter and possibly buzzed down versus the 1.5 feet of hair he's got coming off of the back of his neck.
I've been thinking about mullets all week since you released that podcast where we talked about Nightwing's mullet. I can't stop thinking about
when I edited it, I did not realize how long we talked about mullets. It was like 10 minutes.
But we weren't repeating ourselves. Like, I thought we were adding more interesting, important topics, talking points about mullets,
Yeah. The real things, the real questions to get to when you're talking about anything, really.
Yeah. I'll never look at Bishop the same way again. I never never registered that he had a mullet.
Have you lost respect for Bishop now that you've known?
No, you know what? Honestly, now, if I was going to draw a Bishop, or if they had a Bishop movie, I think you should just go for the mullet at this point. I think just do it, because 80s are back anyway. Fuck it. I think there's a way to make it work.
The way that they did Bishop in Days of Futures Past, they gave him like long dreadlocks and stuff, and I thought he looked great in that. But if Bishop ever shows up in Deadpool, he 100% is going to have that mullet.
He has to. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're right.
The beginning, they play it so straight that it's so dark, and then they do that kind of like flashback thing where Nightwing needs to know what's going on, and so they go, well, I'll tell you, give me a second and I'll recap everything for you. So they kind of keep you off the scent a little bit, although you would think that Scarecrow being involved might be a bit of a tip-off, but there are so many other people involved in this episode.
Yeah.
It's not like
Yeah.
super clear who the villain is.
Right.
And if you want to look at this from a psychological standpoint, what does it say about Barbara's, what she thinks about her dad, that she thinks that her dad would go to the awful depths that he goes to in this episode to get back at Batman?
Yeah, I think that shows a lot of character for her and her father, because I don't think people disagree that Gordon would lose his mind, for a day, and he would play all his cards, and he could probably be very formidable if he wanted to be, and make Batman's life extremely hard. I think that powers his character a lot, and it shows him as being because Gordon very much is by the book, but he's willing to put all that aside if it means avenging his daughter.
Yeah.
I want to take a lot for him to break the rules.
What I do want to see, though, is I want to see the deleted scene where after Gordon goes to Bane and offers him what he offers him to kill Batman, they let him out, and then Gordon goes, "I'm really sorry. All we could find for a mask was this BDSM thing. Is this going to work?" And then Bane's like, "Yeah, this is going to work." And then Gordon walks away and he's like, "I'm going to kill that motherfucker."
Where's my luchador mask?
Yeah, I hate BDSM mask Bane. I really don't like it.
I like it, but I know what you're saying, and I agree.
I think I wouldn't mind it as much if he didn't have the spikes around his neck. I don't know. It's just a really weird look for him that I don't care for.
Yeah, I went through when I used to like drawing characters wearing tight leather, because Travis Touré used to do it really well, and I would copy his stuff. So I remember like Wolverine or Zealot, where somebody was wearing tight black leather, and Adam Hughes went through this phase, and Jason Pearson and a bunch of those guys. It was like a thing in the late 90s, because it was like, you don't have to render muscles, just render sweet tight leather on everything, like in the Matrix, So I'm sure that's kind of what they were going, or at least tipping their hat to.
Just on his face, though, not anywhere else.
Yeah. But I never liked Bane, the wrestler look either. I thought he looked too Jack Kirby for my taste. Like, I'm not.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Like, I'm sorry, everybody. I am not a Jack Kirby fan of his style. Like, I respect him. His output was amazing. He was the guy in the time and the place, and I'll never be as famous as him. Like, I get it. Like, I have all the respect in the world for Jack Kirby, but when I look at his stuff, it's just not my thing. Like, I'm evolved off of styles that are 3 generations evolved from that. Like, I'm not even looking that far. You know what I mean? It's like, I might be looking at Jim Lee when I'm drawing, but I don't see Jim looking at Jack Kirby either. Like, I'm curious like what the tree of evolution looks like. I am not on the branch that connects to Jack Kirby. Although you could argue everyone in comics is connected to Jack Kirby, which is also true. I don't know.
Yeah, he's one of those guys. He's one of those guys that it kind of took me a while to come around on. Like when I was younger, I had the same response where I was like, why do people like this guy? I don't really understand it.
Yeah.
But as I got older and I was kind of like looking at his stuff a little bit more, and I was like, okay, I get it. I think it's a lot of it is based on the time and the place, and like how innovative his stuff was.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's just nobody else draws like him. Like he created so much language for comics comics don't exist without them as they do now.
Yeah.
That it's just incredible what he managed to do in arguably a fairly short period of time.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. I never liked Darwin Cook's stuff. And he's passed on like 4 years ago. And oddly, like, I am friends with all of his old friends. Like, I managed to get into his clique by accident just after he died. Mm-hmm. So I had friends who were like bawling their eyes out, upset that he was gone, And I met him once. I know he was like a kind of a hard drinker and kind of a man's man, or at least thought he was. And I just never liked his stuff. I liked Bruce Timm's style fine, and I just saw Darwin as a swipe of a ripoff, and like there's so many styles that were like comics of yesteryear, like it just seemed like this retro thing, and like I don't fucking get this. I don't care. I got Final Frontier or whatever. I didn't like that either. I mean, I just don't get it. And hopefully none of my friends listen to this, because I don't think they know I feel this way about Darwin. So I might have just ended 3 friendships.
Well, I felt the same way about Alex Toth for a long time too. Where I when I first started looking at his stuff, and I was like, yeah, Space Ghost. Who gives a shit? And then again, that's another one where I was like, oh, okay, I get this. I understand why this is so revered now. It's,
yeah.
Because I think that stuff lands differently when you are considering different things at the time. You know, like when I first came across Alex Toth, I was like right in the pocket of being huge into like Bill Sienkiewicz and Dave McKean and these guys who are like really pushing the boundaries and really lines everywhere. Yeah, it's the complete opposite. Yeah. And so when that kind of like settled down and I was looking at Toth again, I was like, okay, it's the economy that is the brilliance here. Is the stuff that he can do with so few lines and make it so pop so well.
Yeah, the artists. The reason that we call them artists is because they're often unappreciated by the masses because they're doing something that only the artists can see. Like you have to have some training before you can realize, adding a bunch of lines isn't always necessary. You know, Alex Toth proves that there are other ways of doing things. Like you're seeing what he's not drawing with Alex Toth. It's amazing how little detail. It's like you have to be trained in it to get it. You have to be a little bit of an art snob to get Alex Toth, I think. And, you know, a lot of artists are like, artists generally, for me, like fall into that category somewhere, you know? And when they said Darwin was an artist, I'm like, no, he's not. It's not for me. Sorry.
Excuse me. Toth was one of those guys where, you know, when I first came across it, I was like, yeah, Space Ghost, he draws Hot Wheels comics. Nobody's reading that shit. And then you look at those Hot Wheels comics and you go, oh my God, who was reading this? Yeah, because this is the best Hot Wheels comic anyone's ever drawn in history and probably ever will draw.
Yeah, there are people who will claim that the Hot Wheels stuff he did was the peak of his entire career.
It's amazing.
Imagine blowing it on a kid's book.
The chips fall where the chips fall across a person's career for a variety of different reasons. But it's like, it's always mind blowing when I come across something like that where it's a book that's kind of under the radar and you open it up and you go, oh my God, this is unbelievable.
Yeah. Yeah.
But anyway.
There's a really great scene where they're on the roof and Bane throws the bat signal at him, and I did a nod to this scene in my comic. Not a swipe, a nod, everybody. And the way that it was animated, like it looks like it was rotoscoped because Bane is like injured, so he's kind of hobbling, and he picks up this giant circle and throws it, and then falls down towards the camera. Like it's like this 3-point perspective of him stumbling. The only way that they had to have rotoscoped that one shot. That shot is amazing.
I think they might have, because there's another shot earlier in that fight of Batman where he's like coming at the camera and he does this sort of like duck and feint kind of thing before he punches Bane. And I was like, that's not a series of movements that you can do without reference. That it was like too smooth and like too specific of a movement that they must have just rotoscoped somebody throwing like a boxing punch or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's too. I think that was the other. Yeah, I agree with you 100% because I can almost see it in my head again. Yeah. I would recommend going back to people just watching those two little clips. It's just they're so great, you know.
But yeah, I mean, it's not the only time in the episode where the animation is so good. Like the whole episode is just really, really well done. Everybody looks fantastic. Like I like the Batgirl design in general. But I do think that a lot of times she has a little bit of that paper doll kind of stuff we were talking about with Batman.
A little flimsy, yeah.
Yeah, but in this one, I think she looks perfect. Like she looks so realized and so three-dimensional. I mean, as much as you can get in a two-dimensional cartoon. You know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah.
But it just looks great. Like all of her movements look great. Everybody's movement looks great. That the guy they got for that mullet animation was just, I hope he got a raise. I don't know what
the money where he can cut the back of his hair now as well.
Yes. I don't know what the GCPD's bazooka budget is, but apparently it's a lot because everybody's got a bazooka in this, and they which is kind of which I kind of like if you chalk it up to being part of Barbara's dream, where she's like, yeah, I guess then they pull out a bazooka. I don't know what else they would do.
Man, even the way they animated the rain too. Like when she hits the car of her dad's car, that is so
brutal.
Fucking violent. And then he's comforting her. He takes off the mask, and Batman shows up, and he's like, it's quiet. In these new cartoons in this season, you don't get a lot of dead space where characters can just breathe, but this is one. And it starts to rain silently, I think, is what happens. And Batman's like, Jim, I'm sorry. And he's like, save it. Or I don't know what he says, but yeah.
I was really surprised that she died, because in my head, I was like, okay, well, I'm trying to play out what's going on here. And it's like, all right, so Gordon knows he's Batman, so Batgirl falls. Something must happen. She falls like 200 feet, so she's probably going to die. But I'm like, kid show. Maybe she is just very, very badly injured, and she somehow gives up Bruce Wayne's name. So I was not expecting her to straight up die.
Yeah. I think her hitting the car is the second most violent thing I've seen in this show. I think it's hard for a kid's show. I don't think you can push. I think this is the line right here.
Yeah.
Or there was an episode, Mad Love, that's coming up, where a Joker hits Harley with a giant fish and slams and shoves her out of a broken window to the ground, and it's done in kind of like a slow motion thing.
Yeah.
And it is brutal. And I remember Colleen looking up and being like, oh my God, this is a kid's show? And I'm like, yeah, that was the most violent thing I've ever seen in this show, followed by this. It's always a girl getting hit, I think. It's harder. Unless it's my sister trying to change the channel. Fuck it.
Yeah, that's not a great trend to have in the show, honestly. But hopefully it only happens twice.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so if we want to get into the ending a bit.
Yeah.
Obviously we find out that this is all part of Scarecrow's fear toxin, and that Barbara is not actually dead, but she does feel the need. Clearly, this fear is based in a true bit of anxiety she has over her dual life as Batgirl and as the daughter of the police commissioner. So she goes to tell her dad that she's Batman, and before she can get it out, he says essentially, I can't basically he's like, I don't give a shit. But it's a much more heartwarming way of doing that, where what does he say? He says,
but he's like, I trust you and I love you.
I trust
you can make your own decisions or whatever.
And he says something specifically where he's like, when it comes to whatever you're going to say specifically, I can't really comment on it. So let's just leave it at that, which makes me assume that he is in fact acknowledging he's what's the phrase that they use in like
he has a plausible deniability.
Yeah, plausible deniability, or if it's like, in All the President's Men, where they're like, okay, if I'm wrong, tell me. If I'm right, say nothing. And then so they ask a question and nobody says anything. Yeah. So it's that kind of thing. But I do think I have. So here's my read. I have to assume that the implication is that Gordon does know. He still loves his daughter, but obviously he has to maintain plausible deniability, and he can't really admit that he knows, because otherwise he just seems like a horrible father. Because otherwise, like, if she's like coming to him to tell him that she's pregnant or something, he's like, honestly, don't even tell me. I probably shouldn't know anyway. I trust you to do whatever's right. I'm gonna go watch TV.
Yeah.
Or like.
I think
the other thing I
changed my mind, actually.
The other thing I was thinking was like, when the modern version of this, all I could think of was when she's like, Dad, you're going to need to sit down. And he's like, uh-oh. And I was like, the next thing she's going to say is, I've decided to become a cam girl.
Ooh,
it's like, you know what? Yeah. I can't comment on that, Barbara. I trust you.
It's funny. I didn't even know what cam girls were until someone told me the other day.
Oh, really?
Yeah, no, I didn't know. I mean, I know what pornography is, but I didn't know that there was this culture of girls who were doing it on their own just to make money during COVID. I guess I'm not on Pornhub enough to notice that.
But yeah, I feel like does that the reading of it that he kind of has to know, otherwise, I mean, it kind of comes off as he's just kind of blowing her off a little bit.
So yeah, I was gonna push back and say, I think you could interpret this either way. If you want to believe that he knows, you can. If you want to believe that he still doesn't know, you can interpret it that way too. But given what you just said, if you assume he knows, then his dialogue and his approach makes a whole lot more sense. And he is still an intact character who cares about his daughter, but is also a cop. Like that is the better solution here. if the only other alternative is he has no idea what she's talking about, and she could be talking about being pregnant, in which case it makes his response completely inappropriate.
Yes.
So yeah, I think you've convinced me, man. And I've never, for 28 years or whatever, 20 years, I've been convinced that he could or couldn't know. But now I think you're right.
Yeah, I do think it's really funny too, because it very much has that kind of thing where, you know, especially when you're a kid, you got to tell your parents something, but you're just, all you're doing is playing out in your mind how it's going to go and how they're going to react and how it's going to be awful, and in her mind that's what this dream is, and then you ultimately tell them and they're like, yeah, cool. It's like that's it.
Yeah.
Great. Awesome.
And I think that, taken with his line to Batman that he says, all I had to do was look at Barbara's diary. So he knew that her diary would contain information about Batgirl and Batman, which means he knew she was Batgirl. I think that line and the ending itself is pretty clear now to me that he knows.
Yeah, I think so, because it is... I'm really conflicted.
And she knows that he's Bruce Wayne. Because that's the first time that's actually, I think. Right?
Oh yeah, good point. I guess she would have to if that's the
the
dream she's having, unless she just had a really specifically accurate dream without realizing it.
When you accidentally dream up who killed Professor Plum and you just happen to nail it.
Yeah. Your subconscious mind actually does the deductive reasoning that nobody who's actually paying attention can actually figure out.
So it's weird. I don't have a lot of dreams. I don't read about dreams. I don't think about my dreams too much. I just think it's your brain's filing system. Like I don't care. I'm not a hippie like some of my other friends are. But one time I lost my car keys.
Fun?
So we don't have enough time. You got a hard out pretty soon, so we can get into it later.
Oh, sure. Okay. Blame it on me.
No, I lost my car keys once, and for a few days I couldn't find them, and I went to sleep, and I had a dream that I left them in the couch cushion, and I got up in the morning, I checked, and it was exactly where they were.
Yeah.
That's the
Case
only
closed.
time a dream has ever meant anything to me.
It's all the proof I need.
Yeah. No, but people who like want to go, I dated this girl. She's like, you won't believe this dream I had last night. In my head, I'm just like, oh, motherfucker, can't I just get to work? Can't you just not tell me a bunch of weirdo things? It's like telling me about like a Grant Morrison script or something that's not even finished yet. Like, I don't care. Like, give me the abridged version. Telling dreams is dumb unless there's like a plot or structure to your dream. Well, you know, the X, Y, and Z happened in that order, but it's like, and then this happened, and then my neighbor showed up, and then we were on go-karts. It's like, learn to fucking edit.
That sounds fun. I would. That sounds like a dream that's worth telling.
I was a pleasure for her to date. I'm sure I was. Yeah.
Yeah. I know someone who unfortunately makes or has made romantic decisions based on dreams, and surprise, surprise, that doesn't usually tend to work out very well.
Yep.
But I won't get into that.
Yeah.
This. So, what would you draw on this one?
Can you answer first?
Yeah, I would redraw Bane. Because I just don't. I really don't like that design, and I would really.
I think.
Why does it take
that?
I didn't say I'd redraw it, but I said that I didn't like the design. Why does it take Batman again? What does Batgirl think of Batman in this subconscious situation that it takes Batman like 10 minutes to cut the wire on Bane's back thing there, like the Venom thing, which he doesn't even use. He doesn't even use it.
You know,
waste of Bane. It's a waste of Bane. I think it's a good choice as a character in this moment because he is imposing, et cetera, et cetera. Good choice to use him, but it's a little bit of a waste for me.
It's just the spikes in the leather is what you're responding to. It's these two things pretty much.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. It's the S&M Bane. It's funny. I don't feel like I got enough credit in Curse when I had Bane describe why he has that tube hanging out of his head. And I had him go, it's a challenge to my enemies.
Oh, sure.
Meaning he has it dangling out there on purpose. If you can come and get it, great, cut it. And I'm like, that's fucking brilliant. People are going to write like, I'm going to get tweeted like crazy tomorrow. There's going to be articles like Sean fixed Bane, you know, whatever. Like, and no one fucking thought anything one way or the other. And if they did, they certainly didn't say anything online. So thank you, everybody.
Yeah, no, that is a great explanation for that. I think that's very cool.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I think the thing that I want to draw is I like the drawing Batman escaping the Batcave in a rush.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Because I sort of did that with Azrael, and I wanted to do more of it. I wish I had like another page or two to really have fun. Was like Batman versus the Batcave. Like if somebody hijacked it and things were going off, and like the exercise twisty, the little pieces of wood that spin around, and like the thing that Bruce Lee practices on. Like those things are spinning and they're hitting Batman, like whatever, like the bat. And I got to do a little bit of it in Curse, but I would love to have had 2 more pages of him like running, ducking, swinging, working his way down to the bottom of the cave where the water is. Like that would be super, super cool.
Well, you should have done a 5-page fold-out of that sequence.
I would, but I would tip it, So you do a fold-out, but you hold the book like you're looking at a nude in Penthouse. And at the top is the top of the Batcave, and he's working his way down all the way to the bottom where the boat is. I think that would be neat.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool, actually.
Yeah.
Cool. What would you rate this one?
Oh, for me, 5.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough not to give this one a 5 because I do think the other thing that this episode shows is we have talked about episodes in this season being a little bit lacking on substance and feeling a little bit rushed. And man, they get a lot of stuff into 22 minutes in this episode, and it kind of makes me look at the other ones, go, what are you guys doing? How come Paul can do it but you guys can't?
That's why Paul's a producer, not just a hired writer or freelancer.
Yeah, it's like when the one kid in the class gets an A and everybody else is like getting a C, and you're like, why has only one person figured this out?
Yeah, because that kid's a nerd and studies.
God.
Sorry.
Excuse me, I'm getting over a cold. Catch me off guard, I lose it.
Oh, man, yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's going to be 2 5s from us. We've hit the halfway point in our final season of Batman the Animated Series. It's going by faster than I thought it was going to. We're going to be hitting Batman Beyond as sooner than later.
Yeah, I mean, I've been already reviewing those just for my own, to try to write Derek Powers and some of the other stuff in there. So I'm kind of mired in that right now.
Cool.
And yeah, it's good. But the fucking opening and that goddamn solo guitar bullshit. Every episode, it's the same wailing, like... Yeah, they should have hired Carpenter Brute to do a soundtrack for Batman Beyond. That'd be amazing.
Yeah, they would have been like 8, I think.
Yeah, no, I meant if they did it now.
Oh, yeah, yes.
Sorry.
But yeah, that's going to do it for Ultimate Thrill and Over the Edge. Thank you guys for joining us. If you like what you hear, I don't know if people still rate and review stuff on iTunes, but if they do, hey, give us a rating and review on iTunes. That would be great. Tell your friends, your Batman-loving friends, to listen to the BATTASS Podcast.
Yep. Oh, and my housekeeping, we got plot holes done. I sent out PDFs to the backers recently, 3,000 all at once. There was a bit of it was hard because Gmail limits the amount of emails you can send. It's 500 of one day. And at first they're like, my assistant's like, let's just do 500 a day. And I'm like, you're going to make some people wait 6 days. Like, they're going to lose their mind. You have to find a better way to do this all at once. And we did, but it still came out kind of choppy. So if you're listening to this and you backed it and you did not get your PDF, then reach out to Jeff at SGM Art Sales on Twitter, and he will be all over that. And
cool.
Yeah, thank you for backing, and I hope you like it. And if you didn't back it and you're listening to this and you're a freeloader, then I will treat you like my sister.
He'll only talk to you at reunions and holidays.
We get along great now. When she gets drunk, she'll bring that story up because she knows that I'm so upset at myself still about it. And I cannot have apologized. I don't think I've apologized for one thing more in my entire life than that. And it's all because of this episode.
You know, that's what making art is about, is doing stuff that affects people's lives. And in this case, it both split a family up and then ultimately brought it back together. So, I mean, can't ask for more than that. Man,
if you're in a fight and someone's like biting, kicking, spitting, you just fucking lose it after a while. You know, like, I don't know how cops keep their shit together for sometimes. You know, other times they obviously lose their shit. I'm not defending all cops here.
All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks for listening. Thanks for joining me, Sean.
Yep, man, I'm happy to be here. This was good.
And next time we will be back with Mean Seasons and Critters.
Oh,
thanks, guys.
Those are 2 bad ones. Sorry.
Oh,
Bye.
Excellent. See you guys.